So intermittent fasting is a strategy that I hear people use when they're trying to lose weight. The main reason would be to lose weight. And it's gained a lot of popularity over the past few years, the form of diet. Some people have had great results with it. You see it all the time on Instagram, Twitter, and stuff like that. People swear by it. So what is intermittent fasting? And is it just a fad, or can it be sustainable for long-term health? So there's a bit of a difference between some people when they say time restricted eating and intermittent fasting, but there's a vast difference between the two, especially if you love your food. Intermittent fasting involves calorie restriction between your meals, and it's pretty much an umbrella form for all types of fasting, and I'll get into those types in a couple of minutes. Time restricted is a form of intermittent fasting where you could eat for 8 hours and fast for the next 16, for example, and the focus is primarily on the window you have to eat. Some people start in a bigger window, so you have 10, 12 hours to eat, and then reduce that window over time. 12 hours seems like a normal day, so I'm not too sure that really would count, but some people have a 12-hour intermittent fasting. So time restricted eating allows you to eat whatever you want in a time frame and then fast. So there's some studies to say that it can work. It can help with weight loss, because if you've only got time to eat in a certain amount of hours, you're probably not going to eat as much food as you would over the rest of the day, which will mean you have a calorie reduction, which will mean for most of us we would lose weight. And it also means that if you only eat in a certain amount of hours, it might take away the need to do calorie counting, because you won't have a snacking outside those hours. But in some cases, it means you might have to miss meals. So we're going to talk about that a little bit now. The most popular form would be the 16-8 diet. So that's really the one you hear about most. You might hear 14-10 diet, and the 16-8, 14-10 just refers to the hours in the day. So it's like 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating. So you're squeezing your 3 meals into an 8-hour window. That probably means you're skipping breakfast. So let's say if you're doing a 9 to 5, you'll probably not have to skip breakfast, but most people probably would skip the breakfast, have your first meal around lunchtime. So if that's around 1 o'clock, it means that your last meal is going to be between 8 and 9 that evening. That will fit in the 8-hour window. So you'd have your 1 o'clock meal, maybe your food after work, and then some sort of meal after work, and then another meal then between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening. It would be tough to overeat in that diet, but the only problem would be organizing those hours on the weekend where you have that 8-hour schedule. But at the same time, most diets, it's a lot harder to keep track and stick on the weekend, no matter what you do, because you're out of that routine, whereas Monday to Friday, it's a lot easier. That goes back to the old adage that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It kickstarts metabolism, all this kind of stuff. Not necessarily true, not really true at all. I've talked about this before, where over the course of 24 hours is what matters most in terms of what you eat and the sum of the calories over those 24 hours. That could mean having a great breakfast might help some people. Some people, they can't stand the look of food first thing in the morning. They just want to get up, have their coffee, and go about their things. I think in most cases they don't count coffee in fasting. So coffee and water and stuff like that is included outside the 8 hours. So they had their morning coffee. That'd be enough to get through the lunchtime. If you're someone that's used to breakfast and enjoy having breakfast and feel you won't have any energy without having your breakfast, then you might want to think about changing the hours, where your first meal could be, your first meal will be around 7 o'clock in the morning, which means your last meal has to be, all right, Sean, you're putting the spot for maths, by 3 o'clock. Is that right? That means you could have no food at all in the evening, which means that would make it really difficult. Yeah, that's why you'd have to skip breakfast, because if you had food at 7 o'clock and then you made your commute into work for 9, then you'd have lunch around 1, and that's 6 hours already for your next meal, which most people go through anyway. It's not a big deal, but if you've only got 2 more hours to have a meal, that's where it gets a bit problematic. So it would really depend on your own schedule on how you could fit in those 8 hours. It doesn't matter where the 8 hours are in the day, but as long as it was sustainable for you to keep it going, especially between Monday and Friday around your work. And then after that, with the weekend, you can experiment with different times from there. So the other type of diet that'd be pretty popular in terms of fasting would be the 5-2 diet. Unfortunately, that's not 5 hours fasting and 2 hours for eating. That's 5 days of eating and then 2 non-consecutive days of not eating. Well, 500 calories each on each day, which kind of sounds like a lot not eating to me, because a lot of my meals are probably over 500 calories, let alone a day of meal. So it's not a lot, but the premise behind this one, and it goes back to calories once again, is it's taken the whole week into it. So you could overeat a little bit on Monday, let's say you had a 2,000 calories a day. That was your limit. Now, if you stuck to that, that was your baseline weight for the week. If you overeated slightly on 3 to 5 days by 500 calories, and then you had 1,500 calories less on 2 non-consecutive days, over the course of a week, you'd have eaten 1,000 calories less per week. I really hope that makes sense, because that made sense in my head. I hope the maths is right in that. I'm confident that one. The maths is right in that. So because you're eating so little calories on those non-consecutive days, you're probably going to have a calorie reduction throughout the week. The problem would be, because it's non-consecutive days, you're going to have to pick a day where you're probably working, and it might be a struggle not to eat food that day. It is possible, but I mean, like, if you have a boiled egg, that's like 80 calories. I mean, 2 boiled eggs, that's 160 calories right there. You can't really have much else. You probably have some soup, maybe, that might help with a chicken breast. You'd probably rely on a lot of water throughout the day, and then you'd have to have a very, very small meal in the evening to get even close to that. That's if you have 3 meals. You could break it down into 2 meals and 250 calories. I'm not too sure I could recommend that, because I'm not too sure I'd be able to do that, but it is possible. And then breaking it down even further, there's the 1-1 diet. The 1-1 diet is eating on one day, fasting the next day. Oh man, no. Sorry, I'm not even gonna go into that. I don't think, just thinking about the 1-1 diet, fasting every second day, I just don't think that's sustainable long term. I can't really go into that too much. I mean, if you're fasting every second day, you're definitely going to try and overeat on the day you're not fasting to overcompensate that. And that's just going to mess your system. I just don't find that sustainable. Especially one of those days is also going to be a weekday. So you'd have to do Monday, eat normal, Tuesday fast, Wednesday eat normal, Thursday fast, and then Saturday fast. Yeah, I don't really see that working. And so I'm going to move on from that. Another type of diet would be the warrior diet. We're allowed to have some fruit, vegetables, 0-calorie liquids throughout the day, and then you have a 4-hour window at night to have one big meal. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. Once again, don't think it's sustainable. You're going to fall off the wagon. And once you do, you're going to feel terrible that you couldn't stick with a diet and be a worse state when you started. I just don't think that's possible for 99% of the population. So, yeah, I'm going to move on to that. So, when it comes to energy expenditure, there are some studies suggest that neither time-restricted eating nor intermittent fasting has an effect on energy expenditure. Eating and fasting may help decrease your appetite, so you're not eating as much, and that will lead to an overall calorific deficit. In my opinion, I would view intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, as a strategy to lower the number of calories you're consuming in a day. For some people, depending on your lifestyle, it's very achievable to have your meals within an 8-hour window. If you feel like what you're doing isn't working for you right now, yeah, it could be an option, but you got to look at your schedule, you got to plan your meals, and you got to ask yourself, is this sustainable? And if it is, it might very well be for you. By that I mean like the 16-8 or the 14-10, not the warrior diet, and certainly not the 1-1 diet. Can't really get by them. Although I've heard people talk about the 5-2 diet and say it's worked for them. So there's books in that as well. So potentially, but that would really depend on your lifestyle and if it suited you. So maybe the 5-2 diet, but not if it sounds too extreme. It probably is, and if it's extreme, 9 times out of 10 you're not going to be able to stick to it, and if you fail on a diet and you can't stick to it, you're going to feel a lot worse. So make it achievable. Yes, it has to be challenging, but also achievable. And like for me, for example, I wouldn't do intermittent fasting just because it doesn't suit my lifestyle. Like there's some mornings, most mornings during the week, I have sessions from 6 a.m. and then sometimes I'm not finished 10 o'clock at night. Now I have me off times in between, but to try and get an 8-hour window in between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., it's not going to happen. I can come home sometimes at 10 o'clock and I'm like, I got to eat. And I'll have some sort of, it'd be a low carb meal just because I'm used to that. And as well as that, if I have carbs, which I figured out on Friday night where I tried to carb load a little bit, I slowly increased my carbs going back to the marathon. I slowly increased my carbs, but I had a late meal on the Friday night. I had pasta, and just because I wasn't used to it, I could not sleep that night because my body was trying to digest it and I kept waking up every hour. Could have been a little bit of nerves as well in that one, but I think a lot of it was down to the increased carbs. But getting back to my original point in that, it's very hard for me to find 8 hour window in between, but it might be easier for you.